Hey guys, what's up? Just want to promote today's sponsor is Anchor, where this podcast is actually being made. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. That's another big thing about Anchor. You can make it straight from your phone or your computer, and you can sync them, I believe. It's really cool. Anchor will distribute your podcast and put it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, everywhere. And you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So make sure you check them out. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Hey, what is up, guys? Welcome back to the Clash Gaming Podcast. And today we have one main topic, but we'll get into news first, I guess. There's not really that much news to talk about, other than Melvin Gordon leaves the Chargers. Italy records 793 deaths in one day because of coronavirus. And yeah, so nothing too happy or interesting. Yeah, that's probably it for the news, but that wasn't what the main focus of today's podcast was. It was actually this is my Life is Strange 2 review. I'm ready to give my review. So keep in mind, I have not played the first game or Before the Storm or even Captain Spirit. I started playing Captain Spirit, but I just had no clue what to do, so I just gave up. I'll probably come back to that game eventually, but yeah, and I'll probably play Life is Strange 1. I don't know when though. So yeah, just keep that in mind. So Life is Strange 2, Episode 1. Pretty good episode overall. I really enjoyed it. I do think the big decision was kind of stupid. If he had just waited for the police, this entire story wouldn't have happened, but that happens, I guess. And I don't know, I just feel like all the decisions in this episode were kind of dumb. Like, I don't know, and how did Daniel not remember? And if they had just waited for the police, dude, they would have. It bugs me how that if he had just waited for the police, none of this would have happened, and they could have lived a normal life just as orphans. I guess they probably would have gone with their grandparents, and everything would have been just fine. But nope, Sean made this stupid decision and dragged his brother into it too. And I think that was a really stupid decision. This episode especially was really good at like making you care about the characters or really hate the characters, depending on who it was. Like with the dad and Brody, I feel like it did a good job. Like they were cool people, and I was actually sad when the dad got shot. Um, I also felt kind of bad for the police officer after a while, but also not that bad because it was his fault. Um, but yeah, and then for Hank, it does a good job making you hate him. It just does a good job at making you feel stuff in the first episode. So do the other episodes too, honestly. But I feel like this first episode does that the best, which makes sense because it introduced the most character. It doesn't introduce the most characters. That would probably be episode 3. But yeah. Moving on to episode 2. So this is a good one too, I guess. Yeah, it's pretty good. I'd say the first 3 are the best, and then the 4th one's kind of meh, and the 5th one is it's good. It's only good because of the ending, in my opinion. So the second episode is the one where it's a snow theme. Go to their grandparents' house and stuff. I don't know. The decisions were a bit better, I feel like. But I feel like at the ending, when they ran away from their grandparents' house, they could have just gone right back, and the police would have never known, I think. But honestly, then the third episode would have never happened, and third episode is the best one in the series. And as for Mushroom, I didn't really care too much when she died. I was a little sad, but hadn't really spent that much time, so it was whatever. It does a good job at, I don't really know, just making you, just foreshadowing, what Daniels and Sean are going to turn into later, especially when Cassie and Finn show up. you know what's gonna happen next. And then the foreshadowing with their mom too. That's it was pretty good because when I went back the second time and looked at all that foreshadowing, I was like, wow, this is I'm gonna this is good foreshadowing. So like, yeah, I mean, especially when you see the cougar after it kills Mushroom and Daniel tries to kill it, you can either intervene or not. And I think that's one of the most important decisions you make in this game onto which ending you're gonna get. There's a couple other pretty important decisions, but I feel like that's a huge, huge one. Um, so yeah, on to episode 3. It's the one where they're in Humboldt County, California, working on a pot farm, and yeah, they got their squad, their gang. So yeah, there's a bunch of new characters, just a bunch of new characters, which is really cool. And I feel like this one has more people in it, which is kind of cool. It's not just Sean and Daniel by themselves. It's like a bunch of people, um, which is cool, because yeah, I don't know. It's just yeah, I like it. And yeah, it's my yeah, yeah. Um, the ending was probably the second most intense ending of all of these series, and I think it's the only cliffhanger too, because yeah, none of the rest were really cliffhangers, but yeah, this one definitely was. And depending on your decisions, it can actually, I feel like this is the most changeable episode too, because you can completely change what happens depending on your decisions. And I think this is a pretty important episode for your ending too, because this episode actually can directly affect your ending. Like, depending on how you treat Cassidy and how you treat Daniel and stuff. And I think this episode also does a good job at making you dislike Daniel, because he's just a brat in this episode. And a bunch of foreshadowing, a bunch of foreshadowing. This episode directly sets up the fourth episode. So, yeah, fourth episode is it's pretty well foreshadowed, because when they have that conversation at the campfire and Jacob talks about Haven Point and the Reverend, that when I went back the second time and I realized what he was talking about, it was like, whoa, you know. The first time I didn't really get it at all though, but the second time, yeah, I got it all. And also Daniel kind of foreshadows the ending really when he's like, I can stop the police anytime. That's direct foreshadowing to the ending, and it's up to you to change that or to keep it depending on what ending you want. And yeah, as for Sean, he's different in this episode. Yeah, I don't know. He's just different. He's got a longer hair. He acts a bit different, but for the most part, yeah. Um, Merrill, he's an interesting character because, like, I don't know, I kind of cared about him because he seemed like a nice boss for the most part, just a strict boss, but a human. So yeah, Merrill, yeah, you kind of care about him. He has family and all. In my run through, I didn't really get that conversation, but the first time I ran through, he's like, yeah, I got a family to take care of too. And yeah, you kind of care about him, and then you don't want to steal from him. But of course, I didn't choose to steal from him. Daniel and Finn dragged me into it because I had to chase after them. If you watch if you watch my run through, you know what happens. And yeah, so that was all Finn's fault, really. Kind of Daniel's too, but I guess that just happens sometimes. Alright, episode 4 starts out with you in the hospital next to Daniel, of course, because Daniel's a huge idiot. Makes good at making you hate Daniel again, because he just screwed everything up again. Oh yeah, that was a big part of episode 3. Daniel screwing everything up. Like freaking Daniel just screws everything over. So you start in the hospital, you escape. Don't try not to hurt anyone. First time I managed to not hurt anyone. Second time I had to ambush the guard, and I actually convinced Joey to help me escape. but I didn't like his plan because I didn't want to hurt him, obviously. So, yeah, I had to hurt the guard, but that's okay. I'm sorry about that, guard. And yeah, so then you walk out the window, da da da, and then you run into Finn, assuming you didn't get him killed, which I wish I did, but I didn't. So yeah, see Finn, and yeah, you guys have a quick conversation. You know, yeah, can either turn it nice or not. I decided to be nice to him still. I don't know why. And yeah, that's it. So then you steal a car. You go. Um, More foreshadowing because you're under some racist hillbillies, and that's gonna. I don't know. Remember that because I don't know. It kind of foreshadows what's to come with the next ones, and yeah. Bless me. So yeah, then later, your car finally runs out of gas. You're walking along the side of the road, and this trucker stops and is like, "Hey, I can give you a ride." And he kind of looks like a racist hillbilly, but he's not, because I chose to get in the truck because I'm not walking all the way there. And it turns out he's a good guy, which is kind of an interesting dynamic, because don't judge people by how they look. Which I feel like is an interesting dynamic in the fourth episode. And the fifth episode is going to be kind of important too, because the topic of racism is going to come up a bit in the fifth episode. And those, yeah. All right, so let's stay on the fourth episode. So yeah, then you find Haven Point, and you find out that the Reverend has completely turned Daniel against you. You get thrown out. You run into Karen. Like, what the heck? It's Karen. You guys have a talk. Turns out Karen still loves you guys. Yeah, interesting. Still doesn't, whatever. It makes sense, I guess. And then you guys go save Daniel, and yay, the day is saved. Hopefully, you didn't have to kill the Reverend, which I didn't. You don't have to kill the Reverend, actually. You can choose to kill her, but you don't have to. I know you don't have to. So yeah, I feel like that's a really important decision too. Actually, it can be like that is an important decision. I feel like on what ending you'll get. I'd say there's three, maybe four really important decisions. First one was with Mushroom, of course, are you gonna let him kill the cougar or not? The second one was Finn. Are you gonna let Daniel save Finn or say he shouldn't use his powers? And then the third one here is where do you kill the Reverend or not? The fifth one is in episode 5. But my overall review of episode 4, the hospital scene was boring. I didn't like it, and a bit difficult to really get through. If you don't want to hurt anyone, if you just don't care, then just ambush the guard and boom, you're out. But that's not what I'm trying to do, obviously. And yeah. So yeah, episode 4 overall, the hospital scene was boring. Um, the whole church theme was interesting, and overall, it was interesting, and I kind of liked it. I did. The second time, I liked it more than the first, for sure. I don't know why. Just the first time, I didn't really like episode 4. The second time, I kind of had fun with it. I don't really know why. Probably just because I was making all those connections to the other episodes, and this one definitely makes a lot of connections, especially to episode 3, which was kind of cool because I really liked episode 3. Alright, on to episode 5. So, it begins with you camping, out in the desert. This one's definitely a desert theme, which I don't like because I don't really like the desert because it's boring. But, desert theme. This is like in July, I think, yeah, just after months after this whole thing started back in October. And yeah, it's rescue camping. I mentioned the fourth important decision, and I think, in my opinion at least, is when Daniel's messing with the scorpion, and you have to intervene and tell him to stop or not. And I think it definitely tells you too, if what decision you got. Because, I mean, it's, you know, it's like, does he care? Well, this is where you find out, or where you correct him, and it's going to show up later in a very important part of the episode. So then, they find you, well, they raid away. There's a bunch of new characters in this episode as well. Cool characters. Um, cool themes, I guess. I don't really know. Didn't really care too much about any of those characters, to be honest. Except maybe Karen and maybe the other guy. That one guy who lost his daughter and stuff, That guy, I don't even remember his name. That shows how much I care about him. But, he had an interesting story at least. So yeah, and that's an interesting thing too, because it's like Daniel or Sean has to take care of Daniel and teach him, which is kind of what that guy failed to do with his stepdaughter, I believe it was. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting dynamic. Then they leave. Vigilantes, foreshadowing from episode 3. They show up and shoot Daniel, and they think they're illegal from Mexico. But no, they're actually trying to get into Mexico. But they pin them down. But then the police help them and arrest the vigilantes. But then they realize that that's Sean and Daniel Diaz, and they capture them. So then, yeah. And while you're in the holding cell, you meet this nice couple, and it's all in Spanish because they talk because they're actually illegals from Mexico. And yeah, they talk. They have this conversation all in Spanish, which is kind of cool, and I kind of understood it because I'm in a Spanish class, Spanish 1, and I kind of understood what they were saying actually, which made me feel pretty proud of myself because I understood a foreign language a bit, So that's cool. And then, of course, the whole racism theme, the vigilantes are in a cell right next to you, and they're like, "Oh, you guys are parasites," all that political stuff that we don't need to get into, although we could. I kind of want to. Basically, the vigilantes are dumb and they're stupid, and no one likes them. These vigilantes in this episode. I feel like if all vigilantes act like this, though, they suck. All of them. They're dumb. I hate them. But yeah. That aside, yeah, let's progress with the story. Then you get interrogated, Daniel breaks you out, you guys drive, and here comes the ending, the big important part. How to know which ending you got. Daniel will end up hurting one of the officers by accident when he tried to break Sean out, and if he cares about whether he hurt him or not, because Sean will go and check him. If Daniel's like, "Oh, is he okay?" Then you raised the good one. If he says, "Who cares?" you're going to get a different ending. And I could not get this ending. I could not successfully get that ending. So you got an ending that I could not get. And I feel like those 4 decisions I talked about really affect that. So then, yeah, you go up to the border. It's blockaded, of course, because why would you even try and go to that border? Obviously, it's going to be blockaded, but whatever. Agent Flores is I never even mentioned Agent Flores, did I? Yeah, Agent Flores was in the 4th episode. She's your agent who's trying to help you out, but also get you arrested. So, yeah, I never even talked about her. No one cares about her. So, yeah, she's there. Everyone's there. And this is where the big decision happens. Basically, Daniel will look over and say, "How does the story of the Wolf brothers end?" And you can either surrender or cross the border. I chose to surrender, so we're going off of this decision. I didn't like this end. It was alright. None of the endings were too happy. This is what I think. It's a realistic ending because none of the endings were happy or totally happy. First ending, you guys surrender. Daniel accepts, and Sean gets arrested. Daniel goes to their grandparents' house. Cuts 15 years later. Sean gets out. They're all adults, and Lila's there. Karen's there. Everyone's there, and it's really cool, I guess. And then they split up. Second ending, if you choose to cross the border, well, then Daniel jumps out of the car. Maybe, depending on the ending. Daniel jumps out of the car. Sean makes it to Mexico. Daniel goes to live with his grandparents. It ends with Daniel getting a letter from Sean with pictures of him and Cassidy, assuming you treated Cassidy well. And it might be you and Finn, or Sean and Finn, if you, yeah, there's a different decision there, because you could have started a relationship with Finn if you wanted. 87% of people did not, though. So, yeah, alright, and that was my least favorite ending, I think. It's just that it has Cassidy in it, which is cool, and foreshadowing, because that's what they were talking about at the campfire, too. Finn was talking about being on the beach and stuff, and that's his dream, and yeah. Third ending. You choose to surrender, but Daniel disagrees. So in that ending, Sean's like, no, we're not crossing the border. But Daniel just drives the truck, or like uses his powers to drive the truck across, and Sean gets shot and dies. And it ends with Daniel robbing a bank to get a bunch of money and live his life. And then, yeah, he makes a memorial for Sean. And this is by far the worst ending, I think, because it's just Daniel all by himself. And Sean died, and yeah, not a good ending. Now, this last ending is probably the second best ending, in my opinion. It's where they both make it across, and yeah, they live their life. Sean becomes a mechanic. Daniel helps him out with his powers, all that good stuff. I think this is a good ending because it makes the journey feel worth something. The overall goal is get to Mexico. Well, they made it. Hooray. And now they can live their life. It's just, it doesn't really conclude anything because Cassidy, Lila, none of them are in it, And I think that's what makes it the second best. The best one, in my opinion, is the first one I talked about where you both surrender. Because you get some closure. Even though it's not a happy or even satisfying ending, I still think it's the best. And that's what I don't like about the endings. None of them are happy endings. All of them, they're more realistic, It's what would happen in real life if this happened. They would probably get arrested. Nothing happy turns out. Which, yeah, I guess that's just how it is sometimes. And yeah, that's just my main problem with the ending is there's no truly perfectly satisfying or perfectly happy ending. It's more realistic in that way, I guess. But I just don't really, I don't know. It's alright. It's realistic and it's kind of satisfying. The first one, although it does make your journey feel completely useless because you never made it to Mexico, all that, and you didn't even reach your goal. And yeah, yeah. So I actually this whole Life is Strange 2, I actually quite enjoyed it. I think it was a good game. I never played the first one. I heard most people said the first one's better. That Life is Strange 2 kind of sucks. I disagree. I think Life is Strange 2 is really good, and I've never played the first one, so who knows. I will definitely end up playing that one. As for the powers, I feel like I would have liked it more without the powers, honestly. It definitely added some stuff, but I don't know, it just wasn't, I don't know, I liked the story without the powers too. I thought I didn't have to add them, but I know everyone wanted the powers, so it makes sense to add them, really. And yeah, that's kind of it, the story is just what made me interested in, not necessarily the powers and the drama and all that stuff. And yeah, I think that's what made me interested in Life is Strange 2, not really necessarily the powers, because I had nothing. I just downloaded this game off Game Pass and started playing it. I had no clue what to expect, you know. I never even heard about any of the Life is Strange games before that, so I just downloaded off of Xbox and started playing it. And the powers, it was interesting. They just kind of sprung up on me. And yeah, but it was, in the later episodes, I feel like powers are more nice because instead of actually trying to find your way out, you just be like, hey, Daniel, blow this up. And yeah, that's definitely nice. So yeah, I think that's going to be it for this podcast. It was a long one, I know. But yeah, Thank you for watching, and see you on Tuesday.